The Total Screen proudly presents the Weekly Set Podcast with Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Episode 242, recorded February 10, 2020. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Weekly Set, the official podcast of The Total Screen. I am your host. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime here at The Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So, today we are going to be talking about The Magicians, as usual, specifically Season 5, Episode 4, Magicians Anonymous. And we're also going to be talking about The Witcher, the Netflix series. So, let's kick things off with The Magicians. Let's get right into it, because we're going to have a lot to talk about, and I'm hoping to keep this at around an hour.
Yeah, we're gonna go swift.
So the Magicians had quite a number of storylines, quite a number of guest appearances, both like actual guest appearances and just lookalike guest appearances. I guess we could start with Katie's story. So in this episode, it starts off basically with Katie at like a Magicians Anonymous meeting, talking about being a junkie and then having to, try to save the hedge witches, but in doing so, she's putting herself at risk of relapse.
Well, she explains it because she has to find this building that has the spell that could remove the mark from the hedge witches who received the mark from last season that basically shuts off their magic. And the spell is in this building, but the building has disappeared through magic. And she says she has to go into like this realm, but to do it, she has to take like this magical form of acid to get into there. And
being a junkie, that's not something that she wants to do because she's worried she's going to relapse.
Right.
At this meeting, there's one person that's kind of snarky and rude, and she kind of approaches her, and surprise, surprise, it's actually Dean Fogg in disguise of like a young woman.
Yeah, Dean Fogg disguised as a young woman, and he says, I take the anonymous part of Magicians Anonymous very seriously.
Yes. He gets the rest of the story from Katie. Katie reveals that she has these 2 tablets of this like magical acid, and Dean Fogg does a spell and basically takes one from him and pops it right in his mouth and says that he's gonna go for her. And he said he was gonna go for her, but then she said that she wasn't gonna let him go alone.
Right, and so she pops the other one, and they go into Magic Land.
So they're tripping balls.
They're tripping balls, yeah. It's pretty crazy because like there's all this crazy stuff. There's like somebody in like a brown bunny costume. There's like all kinds of people in like animal costumes, by the way. And there's like everything has like cotton
I think they
candy.
saved money by filming it at a furry convention with a cell phone that had a bunch of Instagram filters on it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's just like there's like cotton candy and all kinds of stuff. It's crazy.
They end up finding socks, the missing socks.
Oh yeah, because like they look up and there's like a portal opening in the sky and socks are popping out of it, and it's like, oh, it's all the missing like left socks.
Yeah.
And Dean Fogg is like, if you find like my sock, and he describes it.
And then he finds it. So it's pretty funny. Yeah, they do this whole thing. They're looking for this figure so they can get this information that Katie needs about this building, like you mentioned. They end up finding the guy. He's basically looks like Jerry Garcia.
Yeah, he's Jerry Garcia. He's obviously like a god.
You're having a god of a psychedelic world. Who would it be? Jerry Garcia.
Yeah, it's going to be, Jerry Garcia, exactly. Yeah, he runs the place. And it's funny because he looks like Jerry Garcia and we're calling him Jerry Garcia because they don't identify him in this episode. Mm-hmm. Like, he never says his name. They never ask his name. It doesn't happen. So, yeah, he's Jerry Garcia.
So he basically tells them that, one of them has to stay. And, instead of like arguing over which, no, I'll stay, I'll take the sacrifice. They both want to stay because they're both kind of junkies in a way. Like, Dean Fogg is an alcoholic, but Katie's like, an addict. And, but they're both kind of love this psychedelic world they're in. But Dean Fogg ends up kind of saying like, no, you're still kind of needed defeated. I'm just kind of done.
And Jerry Garcia, like, actually takes his side because Jerry Garcia says something like, you know, you're cool, but, like, I could see, like in about 10 or 15 years, you're gonna be, like, a buzzkill.
Yeah, because she has purpose.
Yeah, because she has purpose. But then he goes to, like, Dean Foggy, he goes, well, this guy's cool.
So Katie departs from them, and she basically says, I'll see you again. So I think the idea here is that this is, like, basically Katie's idea of, like, eventual retiring from the mortal coil.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's their storyline. We should say, I guess Katie ended up getting a note from Jerry Garcia that basically just said Hell's Kitchen on it.
Yeah.
She's apparently supposed to look up Matt Murdock.
That Matt Murdock has the spell. This is an interesting twist. Yes.
Different crossover than I was expecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our next cameo came in a scene where we had Alice going to the library, and she's looking up, she wants to find information on the Cataclysm. She was called to the library anyways, but she's like, well, when I'm going to go there, I'm going to try to get as much information on the Cataclysm as I can, or not the Cataclysm, the harmonic convergence as she can.
Yeah, the harmonic
to bring it back.
That's the threat for this season, the harmonic convergence, not the Cataclysm.
Yeah. So she wants to get that information. I don't know why I kept saying Cataclysm. I kept thinking that, but it's the harmonic convergence. She wants to get the information out. She's going to the library. She meets up with Zelda, who we haven't seen this season yet. She's like the head librarian lady. And as soon as she kind of meets up with her, it's like Zelda's in an emergency situation. She's like warding a door that's being attacked from the other side. It's like immediately, like there's no like preamble to it. It's just like right then.
It's just like they're just being attacked.
She says they're being attacked by the Visigoth, who are like
at first,
raiders.
First she says Goss. She says Goss, and then like and then she's like, oh, you mean like people like Marilyn Manson fans? Is like, no, Visigoths.
It's basically people that have burned down the Library of Alexandria, like they just constantly doing shit. But they're apparently magical, and they grew tired of the, doing raids on Earth and have just been kind of interdimensional since then.
Yeah, they moved on from raiding Earth to raiding other dimensions. And now they're trying to get into the library because they're trying to get the books of like, and here's funny too, because we think of Visigoths as like just dumb barbarians, but like their leader reveals that like they're actually like very intellectual and well read.
But they're like troublemakers. They're kind of like Loki-esque.
Yeah, they're kind of like Loki-esque.
Yeah. Their leader, by the way, is played by David Anders. He's like the next big cameo.
Yeah, from Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, from a lot of stuff. Once Upon a Time, iZombie.
Yeah, he was in iZombie. He was in an episode of Arrow.
He was in Heroes. Yeah, I recognize that guy as soon as I saw him because, he's shown up in so many things at this point. Yeah. And he's great in the role. He's great in those kind of roles. So he was like just a real kind of like annoying smart-ass type guy that's like...
He's credited here as Visigoth Overlord Terrence.
Yeah. This is just kind of funny, Terrence.
Terrence.
Like that name for Visigoth Overlord.
Yeah. But he's great because he's very well spoken and stuff.
Well, it's also funny because when Zelda's talking about kind of the things they do or something, and she's talking about the danger of them getting everybody's books and having all of that knowledge and what they can do with it, and she mentions like the stock market, and she says they love shorting. They think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It just gives you this image, of who these people really are,
Right.
Which is less like evil, destroy the world, angry, and more just like I said, kind of Loki-esque.
Right, exactly.
Like, causing mayhem and utter destruction, not for the purpose of destroying things, but for the purpose of, humor.
Right, that's how they get their kicks.
Yeah. the Visigoth basically chase them through the library. They keep setting up barriers every time, and they keep getting their barriers broken. Finally, Zelda, says like, well, this is kind of like the last resort. We got nowhere else to go. We're in the room with all the books now. They're at this gate. They're about to break through. And, he says like, oh, there's nothing you can do about it. You're here. And then she says, well, I hope you can read fast. Or she makes a comment like that and just torches the whole place. So all these characters' books that have been like a part of the story for like the whole time, basically. And maybe season 2, I don't know. No, season 1, I think they first showed the books. I don't remember. But anyways, it's these everybody on Earth's books that tell their story, and she just burned them all.
Yeah, she burns everybody's books in order to keep them out of the hands of the Visigoths. Which, apparently, like, everybody's cool with, because, like, I think, like, Alice or something says, like, later, like, it's cool because, like, now, like, there's not a book to determine her destiny.
I think Penny said that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Penny said that. I knew somebody
Penny 23.
said that. I knew somebody like that. That came from somebody, but yeah.
So yeah, like Penny 23, I think said that, and that was later on. But Alice didn't go home empty-handed because Zelda says that she's basically read all of those books that they were looking for on the harmonic convergence already, and she said the answer's pretty simple.
How convenient, right?
She said, yeah, the answer's pretty simple. Simple, but hard, like, simple to what the actual solution is, hard as to how to achieve it.
Right.
Which is, they need to move the moon.
Yeah, they need to move the moon.
So I guess the harmonic convergence is kind of like the tides. affected by the moon, or the placement of the moon.
I don't know what the moon has to do with anything, because they kept describing the harmonic convergence as like just like the point where like the harmonic convergence is supposed to be the point where like every magician's like spells go haywire at once.
Yeah.
It's literally supposed to be like people are casting spells like they normally are, except a surge happens and every single one of them goes bonkers and mass chaos occurs from that. I'm not sure what the moon or the tides have to do with that. That's not really explained.
It's probably, I think it's playing on like the typical trope of like, the planets or the celestial bodies align.
Right.
And that leads to more magic or something. And if you can move the moon, being the smallest of the celestial bodies that would be aligned, then they won't be aligned.
Right.
And you don't have that moment.
Yeah, I think, that sounds pretty sound, actually.
But yeah, so that happens. Meanwhile, Julia re-encounters the Binder, our next cameo, Matt Frewer from Mad Max.
Yes, and from last season of The Magicians.
Yes.
It's good to see the Binder again. It's good to see Matt Frewer again.
I forgot about his character and the way he always refers to something like a book, like
he's narrating.
That's crazy, said the Binder,
Yeah, exactly. Like, he talks like a narrator, like he's narrating everything that's happening in front of him.
Yeah. So he's pretty funny. So Julia re-encounters him because she encounters a goddess who says that she can help with the harmonic convergence.
Yeah, she says she can stop the harmonic convergence completely, but all she wants from Julia is to learn how Julia managed to go from being a god to being human again.
She's the goddess Clarion, who's the goddess of melodies, I guess.
Yes.
So like music.
And she says like her problem is like she is the goddess of music, but while she understands music and while she like understands what makes good music or what makes bad music, she can't feel it like the way humans do. She can't like derive like emotion or pleasure from music, and I guess she wants to be able to feel that. Yeah. And that's why she wants to be human.
So she wants the solution that Julia used to make herself human, which is the Binder.
Yes.
So she says, I need that book that you use to make yourself human, the book meaning the Binder. So Julia's gonna give the binder to Clarion for this purpose. But before that can happen,
Penny
goes
23.
haywire.
Yeah, like the signal that he received just gets worse, and he said like the thing that he was using to dampen it isn't working, so he has like a stronger one made for him.
Mm-hmm.
But as he's like trying to apply it, he just like completely blinks out, and he comes back, and he's just like he's just fucked up, you know.
He's disoriented. He doesn't even know what happened, where he went.
Right, what happened where he went, and then it just gets bad. It's to the point where, like, after Julia has the binder, you know, Penny, like, starts having a seizure, and then, like, the goddess shows up and tells, like, Julia, like, he's dying. He is gonna die, you know, and Julia's like, oh my god, well, you have to save him. You're a goddess. And she's like, I could, but, you know, if you give me that book, I can save him. And she's like, alright, well, you'll save him, and then you save the world. And she's like, no, I'll do one of those.
Yeah.
not both.
So dem to breaks. Those are the rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got one thing to trade, you get one thing in return.
Yeah, like most gods in this show, she's pretty shitty.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
So Julia ends up deciding on saving Penny.
Yeah.
The harmonic convergence is a problem down the line. Penny is a problem right now.
Yeah.
So she saves Penny with the hopes that they're going to be able to save everybody from the harmonic convergence later. And then the goddess says bye and heads off.
She takes the binder and leaves.
Yeah. So now they're stuck. They know because of Alice what they need to do. They don't have no clue on how to do it.
Right.
But they're all together on that.
Yeah, they're all together. They don't know how to do it. They no longer have a goddess that's willing to help them do it. So that's not an option anymore. So yeah, now they gotta figure out how to move the moon.
We get one more surprise though.
Yes.
Which is that Penny's student that basically had Penny lower his guard to hear the harmonic convergence caused all this problem.
Oh yeah, she's a Chatwin.
Yeah, she reveals that she's actually a Chatwin. She's one of the Chatwins. And she's like, I'm so sorry, this is my fault. And they're like, no, it's not your fault. And she's like, no, you don't know.
So, like, the signal was part of the Chatwin curse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she reveals herself as a Chatwin. And then the last storyline we have this week, there's not a lot to talk about. There's like one kind of big meaningful moment, I guess, which is that we get to see kind of the Dark King, Sebastian.
Yeah.
We get to see kind of what he does. So first we have, you know, Elliot and him flirting a bunch.
Yeah.
And Elliot kind of wanting to be with him a little bit and kind of trying to excuse the fact that he's a Dark King in order to do that. But also at the same time,
Margot is trying to, like, tell him, don't get attached. We don't know. Like, we don't know, like, what his deal is. Like,
yeah, he is called the Dark King.
He is called the Dark King, so she's trying to warn Elliot not to get, like, too involved with him. They're supposed to be, like, just, like, infiltrating, scoping him out,
Yeah. Well, it's funny because Elliot's like, but your name was like Margot the Conqueror or whatever, And she's like, I'm a woman. I have to.
Yeah, I'm a woman.
I have to do that for my brand.
Yeah, she's like, I'm a woman. I have to destroy the patriarchy. That's my brand.
It's funny. It's like he doesn't need to be to have a brand like that. He's just is,
Meanwhile, while Elliot is an advisor to the Dark King now, apparently. Mm-hmm. Margot is a member of, Margot having won the trial, from last episode, is, a member of, the Dark King's elite guard. And,
yeah.
And what happens is, they're going off on a mission, supposedly a rescue mission. So,
they're going off to hunt takers and try to rescue some people.
Yeah, there's apparently, some people, trapped in this cabin or something, and they're surrounded by takers, and they're supposed to, be going out there and killing the takers and, rescuing these people. That's supposedly the mission. We find out, that's really not really the mission, later. But
what's interesting here is that you see Sebastian taking out a bunch of these takers as if it's easy.
Yeah, that's the
and while he's doing that, everybody in Fillory is watching, he's broadcasting it, basically.
Yeah, because, they go out to, Sebastian goes with them, and, Margot is surprised because she's like, wait, wait, should he be going out like this? And everybody's like, yeah, it's normal. And like, he's broadcasting it to like everybody in Fillory, like it's a big show. And the thing is, like, they go out and they show how hard it is to take these guys out, because like, they show like these various like members of the elite guard getting taken out by takers. Margot actually like digs, like takes two of them down with her magic axes, but they come right, they get right back up, you know, and they're about to like take out Margot when Sebastian shows up and seemingly with like ease just kills them.
Yeah. But then they cut the camera feed out right before he like basically collapses.
Yeah, like he collapses like he's not doing so good. You know? Yeah, like
it also seemed like he was kind of like absorbing something from the takers.
Yeah, I don't know.
When he was destroying him, it looked like something was flowing into him.
Either that or like the power was like just draining out of him and he collapsed. I don't know what's going on with that, but that is a red flag.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so then after they take off, most of the guard takes off with him. The leader of the guard, you know, has a few of them stay behind, including Margot.
They show like the people like being rescued going off. And yeah, and the guard has like Margot and a few people stay behind, and Margot is like, well, shouldn't we be getting going? You know, like we defeated the takers, we rescued the hostages, you know, mission accomplished. And he's like, no. You follow me, you know, and I'm like, okay, what the fuck's going on? And it turns out they're looking for somebody, or, you know, who's apparently, like, hiding from them.
Well, Margot does a spell on her eye so she can see through things. Yeah. And she sees that there's a fairy underneath the wood floorboards. Yeah. But she doesn't reveal it, because the fairy sees her too and is, like, gesturing to her, like, don't tell them, you know?
Unfortunately, though, Margot kind of gives her away, because, like, Margot's just
no, the fairy makes, like, a noise by accident.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, it doesn't matter if Margot gives her away. She made a noise and everybody else was able to realize, oh, you know, someone's hidden under here, and they remove the floorboards, and then there's a fairy.
Yeah, and they capture this fairy.
Yeah, and they're like, you know, they look at Margot because Margot's having this reaction. They're like, do you know each other or something? And, you know, it's more just Margot shocked that there's a fairy under the floorboards.
That's the real reason they were there. They weren't there to save people or kill takers. They were there to get that fairy.
Yeah. We don't know why yet.
We don't know, but
I'd imagine it's something similar to why the fairies were imprisoned last season or the season before.
Because we know what you can do with fairies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
And yeah, that's it. So that's the episode. We're going to talk about this show more as the show progresses. Just a heads up though, we are not talking about The Magicians next week. Next week we are doing Lost Season 1. We've been doing this Lost rewatch, and we're going to be concluding Season 1 just in time for the podcast next week, and that will be about Lost Season 1.
Get lost with the weekly set.
Yes, get lost with the weekly set. You know, hit subscribe and click that bell.
Yeah, exactly.
But our last discussion of the week is going to be The Witcher. We're not going to do like a full breakdown of all of the events in the season. We just have a few things we want to address.
8 episodes. Like, no, not doing a play-by-play.
We're just going to address a few things and kind of talk about our impressions and stuff. In general, what were your impressions of The Witcher on Netflix?
You know, in general, I enjoyed it. I did. I enjoyed it. Like at first blush, like especially the first episode, it comes off as like this low budget, like, you know, fantasy show.
Yeah, besides like one really great fight scene, it's kind of.
It's kind of it comes off like you compared it to Hercules and Xena, and I thought that was like accurate. You know.
Yeah.
But it does improve through the season, and I think I don't like it doesn't like become great. Like,
yeah,
but
I think it's still in that Hercules and Xena range. You know?
It's still in that range. It's a little. I would put it like. I after having watched the whole season, I would put like above those shows. But yeah, it's still within that range. But I thought it was very, very fun, very entertaining. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the situation. Henry Cavill's portrayal of Geralt is great.
Yes.
Very cool.
He's almost a silent protagonist. He basically has like 2 words.
Yeah, it basically has 2 words, but
It's like fuck and
But it's funny how like he could take like because he could take a character like that and get you invested, because it's very hard to take a stoic character like Geralt and get you invested in him, because he doesn't emote too much, he doesn't talk too much, but
I'll tell you what it does. It's you have a good actor,
yeah,
who's very passionate about the source material.
Yes, very passionate about the source material.
And it's a combination of those 2 things that makes it work. Because I think a lot of people, they'd play that kind of stoic kind of character, and they're just kind of, at a certain point, they're just doing it for the paycheck, And some of them, like, even if it's a good actor, or you just have somebody that's passionate about it, but they don't have the chops, But with Henry Cavill, you have somebody who is a legitimately good actor, and who also happens to just be utterly obsessed with the source material.
Yes.
And so he wants to be Geralt of Rivia, and so he is Geralt of Rivia.
And so he is, yes. Fantastic. I also thought the other actors do a great job. The actress who plays Yennefer is fantastic in this as well.
Yes.
She's also great. Obviously, the show wouldn't work if either one of them was bad. So, because
some of the characters are a little hammy.
Some of the characters are a little hammy. Yeah, I just call him Dandelion, or Jaskier, as he's called in this. But it's interesting because he's called Jaskier, but in the novel he's named Dandelion.
The Bard character, basically.
Yeah, the Bard character, it's funny because when he first showed up, I thought, oh my god, this guy's super annoying. It's funny, too, because, they come out with, that song. That's when the famous song, that I'm not gonna quote, because everybody knows it. came out at the end of it, and my impression was, man, that dude was super annoying through the entire episode, but then he just puts out this banger of a song.
He's I can't think of the actor's name, but there's a British actor who's been in a bunch of stuff. Did you watch Good Omens?
Not yet. I have to.
He was the witch hunter guy in Good Omens, and that's who Jaskier reminded me of. He was it's like they were literally cast, how sometimes people, casting agents will say, we're looking for a, Edward James Olmos type, yes. So they're looking for something that, they know they can't get Edward James Olmos, so they're looking for somebody who's like Edward James Olmos, who kind of has the same qualities. That's it almost feels like they were looking for that guy for Jaskier, but not him specifically,
Right. That makes sense.
He kind of has a very similar impression he puts off and stuff. But yeah, I don't know if that guy can sing though, so it might not have worked.
But by the end, but he grows on you. He grows on you.
Yeah.
So he's a fun character.
I don't know if that you say that song's an absolute banger and it does get stuck in your head, but that might not be a good thing. I don't know if that song is a friend to humanity.
The lyrics are terrible, but then it is an earworm.
There are some other pretty there's this one kind of king guy that's the guy that was sleeping with his sister or whatever from the storylines.
Oh, the Striga.
Pretty hammy actor,
yes. Yeah.
I think that's actually Mads Mikkelsen's brother.
Oh, really? Interesting.
But yeah, played hammed it up a bit for that role. Or a lot of people were saying they really liked the queen, basically Ciri's mother.
Yeah.
Her grandmother. I thought she was super hammy.
Yeah, she was very hammy. There's a lot of people playing the smaller parts, really hammed it up, it seemed.
Yeah.
And it's that keeps it from being great.
Yeah, that's the thing. I will never say that The Witcher is a great show, because I just think it's not. But it's a fun show. It's a fun show. It's fun to watch. It doesn't have to be great. Yeah. Not all shows need to be, triple A tier. Yeah. High quality, thought-provoking, masterpieces of cinema, on TV. Not everything has to be that. I compared it to Hercules and Xena. I didn't mean that as an insult.
Right.
I meant that in the sense that it's kind of hammy, kind of cheesy, kind of low tier, but also a lot of fun to watch.
Anybody who's a regular listener to the podcast knows that we enjoy those shows.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. A show like that is fun to watch, even if it is kind of hammy, you know?
Yes.
And that's what The Witcher is. The Witcher is a hammy show that's fun to watch that happens to have a really great actor in its main role.
Yes.
Who's doing just an amazing job in that character. And, you know, because of him and his commitment to it, we're getting some amazing fight scenes. The ones that involve him, at least. Not necessarily all of the other ones. But his fight scenes are spectacular. So yeah, that's our basic impressions of The Witcher. What did you think about the timeline?
Yeah, that confused me at first because, like, they don't make it obvious that things are happening at different times. Like, when you first watch the show, like, the second episode shows, like, the Nilfgaardians, like, you know, raging, what is the name of that country?
I can't remember.
Start with a C, but
We'll just call it the main country, Ciri's home country.
Yeah, Ciri's home country. But, you know, like, they're raiding that. They kill, you know, they basically, like, they kill Ciri's dad. They injure,
Not
like...
dad, grandfather.
Oh, that's right. No, never mind. Gee, I'm so confused. You're right. No, yeah, they kill Ciri's grandfather because her parents are already dead before this happens.
It's grandfather. I think it's like step grandfather. Actually, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, we don't have.
It's kind of weird.
We don't have to. We don't have to get that specific.
Yeah,
that specific. Grandfather's good enough. And, you know, like, they injure her grandmother to the point where, like, you know, and they basically, like, take the entire country. You know, they sack the entire place to the point where, like, her grandmother tells her to, like, go find Geralt of Rivia. He's your destiny, you know? And she doesn't know what that means, but she runs off. And it's, like, cool. We've seen Geralt before this, obviously, like, in the first episode. He is in this town, and, you know, like there's this, like, woman that this wizard wants him to kill, you know, and she tells, in the middle of that, she tells him about his destiny, about Ciri. And so the assumption is, like, these events are happening at the same time. But apparently they're not. Because, like, we see other events happening, and then finally we get to the episode where Geralt shows up in that country, and there's the queen, and she's alive and well, and I'm like, what? You know? And then, like, we see, like, you know, her husband.
She's done this big party, and at the party are these, like, two young kids that are introduced as, like, the prince and princess of this other country. And you also realize, oh, that's that creepy guy that was, like, sleeping with his sister.
Yeah.
The one that, like, gave birth to the girl that became, like, a stray guy or whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
the Striga.
It's like, there's the boy, and he's already creeping on his sister.
He's already creeping. And yeah, there's that, and like, and the banquet is like, you know, the queen is marrying off her daughter to like a noble person, you know, to create an alliance between like these two countries. And
we also see, like, her basically, like, dressed down like a Prince of Nilfgaard, like, just completely, like, humiliating him in front of everybody. It's like, okay, well, there we get some of the motivation for Nilfgaard destroying this country.
Yeah, and basically what happens is, like, it is like she's promised to, like, this guy who's cursed to look like a hedgehog, basically.
Yes,
know?
His name's Sonic.
Yeah, his name's Sonic. She's cursed to, like, marry Sonic the Hedgehog. And you know, and there's, like, a scuffle, there, you know, stuff happens, but at the end of the day, like, Geralt intervenes, and you know, the curse is lifted, and they get married. The hedgehog and this princess get married, and you know, and Geralt's trying to leave. You know, he's like, "Yeah, my job here is done. I'm out." And the princess looks up and she says, "Wait, let me give you something." And he's like, "No, I don't want anything. I just want to fucking go." And she's
it wasn't the princess. It was the guy that was cursed.
Which one? Oh, it was the guy that was cursed. Yeah, it was the guy that was cursed. And he's like, "No, I just want to go." And he's like, "No, I must give you something. How about I give you like the law of surprise?" So basically, like you come back and whatever, like, I have in the future is, like, yours. And Geralt is like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. I'm leaving."
Queen freaks out about this because what we end up finding out almost immediately after is that the princess is actually pregnant. And so the law of surprise applies to the queen's granddaughter.
Yeah, we find out she's pregnant. So yeah, the law of surprise applies to her granddaughter, she freaks out. The magician there, who actually happens to be like a friend of Geralt's.
Yeah, with the hilarious name of Mousesack.
Yeah, Mousesack. He's a friend of Geralt's. He's like trying to tell him, like, he's like, she's pregnant, that kid is yours. You have a responsibility now. Like, you can't cheat destiny. Like, if you don't claim the child, bad things are gonna happen, and Geralt is like kind of writing this off, like, yeah, no, fuck you. I'm leaving. I don't care about this. I'm never coming back. And we find out that was Ciri, obviously, and we know, like, all these events take place in the past. What makes this confusing, the way they present it, is because in this episode, he's with Jaskier, the bard, who, like, convinced him to go to this banquet in the first place. And it's funny because, like, you see, like, in a previous episode, he had just met Jaskier. And so, if you're watching it linearly, you see, like, what happens with Nilfgaard attacking this country, and what happens with Ciri, and then the next episode, Geralt meets Jaskier for the first time, and they go off on an adventure, and they meet the elves. And then the next episode, they're at this Jaskier is having Geralt go to, like, this banquet, and all of a sudden it's like it's in the past. And I think that's the confusing part to me, because I'm like, wait, so that means, like, the episode before that, when he met Jaskier, was also in the past. Well,
there's a third timeline, too.
Yeah.
Because then there's also Yennefer's timeline, because Yennefer meets up with Geralt, but this is, like, when she's, like, older, much older, and, like, but she looks young because of the magic that she has. And so she's been around for, like, a long time. Yeah. But we see her when she's young, and when she's learning magic, and she was, like, a deformed kind of hunchback.
When she was, like, a hunchback, when she's, like, learning magic. Yeah.
And so you have this whole timeline about her, and then you get to her where she's actually older, like in the books, I guess she's older than Geralt.
Yeah.
Who himself is very old.
Yeah.
But she's even older than him, so this stuff is like supposedly before he was even born, like her early childhood stuff. And then she'd been, a court magician or whatever for quite a while before she met Geralt.
Yeah.
And then
she meets Geralt again, thanks to Jaskier. Like all these stories seem to like involve Jaskier playing a critical role in one way or another.
So it took a while before all the storylines kind of merged together, and then you kind of realize, like, oh, okay, I get the timeline now. I get what's going on with these three separate stories.
You can piece it together. It's just it's initially confusing, but once you realize, you can figure it out pretty easily. It's not as bad as Westworld, where
say not as bad, but I think it wasn't handled as well as Westworld either. I think Westworld was way more confusing, but I think it was also more intriguing. Where with The Witcher, I think there was no intrigue about the timelines until you suddenly realized, oh, these are different timelines, which you had no idea.
I don't think it was meant to be intriguing in the case of The Witcher. It's they weren't trying to use the timelines to trick you or to reveal some secret or something, because it doesn't do that. It just confuses you. Yeah.
It just kind of confused. I don't know how well it was executed. People talk about the non-traditional way, but it was, by the end you realize what's going on, and that's all that matters.
I think it's a byproduct of the season just being a patchwork of various short stories being put together and trying to string a narrative through them, because
that kind of brings us to our next topic, which is the book that it's based on.
Yeah, because if you look at the book it's based on, at least for the first, I don't know how many books, but at least for the first few books, it's just collections of various short stories about Geralt.
What I've heard is that it's the first two, and then the rest of them are a more of a narrative story.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the first two, so this is mainly based off of the first book, but it's basically a series of pretty disconnected short stories. It's framed by this narrative device where Geralt is in this temple, healing from being bitten in the neck by the Striga, which is the first short story they go into in the book. you know, like we see like Geralt, like the book opens with Geralt in the temple, like, you know, and then it goes into the story about the Striga, and then it goes back to the temple, and we find out Geralt is there because of his wound from the Striga, but then it goes into like all kinds of different stories that aren't necessarily like related, you know?
Mm-hmm.
In most of the stories that we saw in this first season, the story about the Striga, the story about the banquet and the Child of Surprise, the Last Wish, where he meets Yennefer for the first time, like those stories are in this book, but it's not presented in any like linear fashion, you know? It's like basically like he's just like passing the time recounting these stories while he's healing.
Yeah. It's almost like a collection of short stories, but with like a framework to it.
Right. Also like, the story with like the Golden Dragon is apparently in the second book. Yeah, but it's more like that. Like it doesn't mention Nilfgaard's not mentioned. All the stuff that happens with like Nilfgaard attacking this country and all the stuff about Ciri isn't mentioned. The only thing we see is the banquet story where Geralt gets like you know, the gift of the Law's Surprise. And as far as like the books are concerned, like in that first book, we don't know what that entails just yet. We don't know about Ciri or what's going to happen with that. Because they don't really, like, it ends with, like, that. The story wise. And
it's kind of like, I don't necessarily like the way that they brought in the stuff about the attack on the castle and all that by Nilfgaard that early in, because it also kind of like shows the death of Mousesack fairly early in because of that. And that's kind of annoying because it's like, besides Geralt, he's one of the more likable characters.
Yeah, it's annoying.
And then you're like, okay, so we're gonna see him because the timelines are all screwy, and so we're probably going to see more of him, but this whole time we're going to know like he's dead, and that just kind of like neuters his importance to anything we see him in.
Right. And
so it's I don't know if I like the way it was executed, you know?
Right. And that again, I think is the byproduct of them feeling the need to string a narrative through like these stories so that the season can have like an ongoing season-long narrative, you know, when like the story structure wasn't really designed for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's why you get the divergent timelines and things being like a little bit weird, but they do the best they can with it.
So we should talk about what The Witcher's most famous for.
Well, I want to like also briefly mention like it's about the books like what they changed from the books to is like the books love to make references to famous fairy tales that are completely omitted from the show. Like I briefly mentioned like the first episode where the wizard wants him to like kill this woman who's like a bad woman, and like the books go into like way more detail about her. Like she's basically like evil Snow White because like she has like the stepmother with like a magic mirror who's like sending people like to capture her, and she's like apparently like murdering people, and like she teams up with like a band of like seven dwarves, and then they go out like raiding and like robbing people and shit.
The showrunners were like, yeah, I think people got sick of Once Upon a Time. We can't do this.
Yeah, exactly. I just think it's amusing. There's an entire, like, short story in the first novel that's, as far as it's completely excised, it's not in the season of the show, but it's basically like Beauty and the Beast, because Geralt runs into, like, this monster who is like a man who was cursed to be a monster, and he lives in this house with, like, all these magical, all these, like, magical, like, things, like chairs and, like, dinner dishes and stuff. And Geralt gets to be his guest, and he talks about how
he's his guest.
Yes, and he mentions to Geralt how like he has like the town like merchants like keep bringing him like girls to like live with him and stuff, but they all end up taking his money and leaving. But yeah, that's not in there.
Yeah, they probably avoided that because they already had the hedgehog guy.
Yeah.
So it probably just kind of felt redundant at that point.
Probably.
Plus, if they're excising, fairy tale connections, it's going to be kind of hard to tell that story without
Oh, yeah.
having those there.
Yeah, it'd be very hard, actually.
But yeah, so like, we've talked about kind of the book this is based on and stuff, but what the series is most known for isn't the book series, or, now the Netflix series has raised the popularity of it again, but what put The Witcher on the map was the games.
Yes.
And so there's some confusion though, because I know like, even when some screens were first revealed, or like when Henry Cavill was first revealed, and they're like, oh, he looks too young, he doesn't look grizzled enough, this isn't this part enough.
Yeah. Where's
this person
beard?
doesn't look old enough. What's going on with this part here? And it's like, what I think a lot of people didn't realize, I think by now they pretty much know, but
I think a lot of people didn't know that the games are sequels to the books. Like the
yeah, it's not like a straight adaptation. It's the games are like the Watchmen HBO series,
right? Yeah, the games are not
the graphic novel.
Yeah, the games aren't an adaptation of the novels themselves. They're more like sequels, because it makes sense, because like the game developers wanted to be able to create their own narratives and like have more control over like what happens in the game and what the player can do. And that's just easier to do when you're creating new stories than it is to try and like stick with the confines of like a novel that was already written.
Yeah. So the games are like, follow up from the series, but there was definitely, I mean, the showrunners even mentioned that there's influence from the games in the series, even though the series is based on the books, not the games. So the series are like a prequel to the games in a sense.
Yeah.
The games did have an influence on kind of like the look and presentation of the series to some extent.
To some extent, yeah.
They also, as I mentioned, they're the reason Henry Cavill got involved.
Yes.
In The Witcher, because he was an obsessive player of The Witcher 3 in particular.
Henry Cavill, believe it or not, is a capital G gamer.
Yes. PC Master Race capital G gamer.
He's Gamers Rise Up.
Yeah, pretty much. And he was so into The Witcher that he basically pursued the role. Like, I don't think they would have even approached him for the role, as good as he is, because he was too high profile.
Oh, yeah, like...
They wouldn't have gone for somebody that high profile. They were going for some more people. He basically, in a way, I mean, we don't really know what's going on completely with Superman, but he basically left Superman for The Witcher.
Yeah, he's very high profile. Like, yeah, because it's funny, because, like, you could name, like, any of the other actors doing this show, and you're not going to recognize these names. Not taking anything away from these actors, because they're very good. They're very good actors, but Anya Chalotra or Joey Beatty, they play pretty major characters. You're not going to instantly recognize them. People, I think, by now instantly recognize the name Henry Cavill.
Yeah, besides Henry Cavill, the next most recognizable name is the guy who plays Stregobor, and that's not his name that's recognizable. It's the fact that his last name is recognizable because it's Mads Mikkelsen's brother.
Yes. So it's, and that's not to take away by anybody. So yeah, that was kind of a huge get for this show. I think more so than it being based off of The Witcher, I think it was probably Henry Cavill that probably convinced a lot of people to check this out. Maybe people who weren't familiar with what The Witcher was, were familiar with Henry Cavill, and probably checked it out for him.
Yeah, it was kind of shocking when he joined the project, because like everybody else they were looking at casting were like these much lesser known people, and all of a sudden here's this like movie star, Yeah. It's like pretty high list movie star, like kind of, for lack of a better word, not that I like the way this would sound, but basically slumming it on a Netflix show.
Well, doing John, it's a film star, high profile film star doing genre television, on, like you said, like on the tier of,
Hercules
Xena, this would be something, an actor at the beginning of their career might be doing, but we've seen.
Yeah, imagine like Burt Reynolds wanted to play play Hercules.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Hercules is or something.
Hercules, yeah, like we have seen we have seen recently, like, you know, film stars, you know, wanting to get more involved with TV, but it's always like it's premium TV at this, you know.
Yeah,
it's been
HBO, and
it's been like it's been like stuff like True Detective, you know, stuff that really pushes like the boundaries of what you consider television to be. This is, you know, again, no slight, but this is like a standard fare genre show, so it's not that typically the type of material that attracts like A-list Hollywood talent.
Yeah. And it attracted one Hollywood A-list talent.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
so it's kind of funny, his involvement in it. He's so good in it, as we've mentioned, you know?
Yeah.
And that's not to take away, like we said, from the other performances and stuff, but nobody else in this is on his level.
Right.
He's not acting. This isn't like Westworld, where you have, like, Sir Anthony Hopkins interacting with, like, Ed Harris.
Ed Harris, yeah.
Yeah, it's like you have two legends interacting in a scene. Yeah, you don't have that on The Witcher. You have Henry Cavill and then a bunch of like C-listers, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Which doesn't mean they're not good. It just means they're not famous.
I'm not taking anything away from. Yeah, I'm not saying
there's a difference between skill and fame. You know, like that's not. To take away from one or the other.
I mean, yeah, I don't mean like that they're bad. I mean like that they haven't been headlining any major Hollywood blockbusters.
Yes. They weren't fucking Superman.
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so Henry Cavill got involved because of the games. I think a lot of people watching the show got involved in watching the show either because of the games or because of Henry Cavill, as he said. And yeah, I mean, he probably is a lot of the reason why the show probably got enough of a budget to do some of the effects they did and stuff. And a lot of that's probably just because they said, okay, well, I guess we have Henry Cavill, so I guess this is higher tier than we thought it was, you know, even though it is still kind of a lower tier show.
And I expect the budget to get bigger because Netflix seems to be like super happy with how season 1 performed.
Oh yeah, so, apparently it's just like second to Stranger Things as far as how it's performed on Netflix.
Yeah, it's how it's so yeah, I expect like Netflix to pour more money into season 2.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this should go on for a while and should see an escalating budget season over season. I mean, Game of Thrones, the first season budget is absolutely dwarfed by the later season budget.
Oh yeah, because
so
like
you could see something similar here.
It's a thing where like the first season, you know, you don't know how successful it's going to be, so you're going to like hedge your bets. But then like once it's proven, you could spend more money on it.
Yeah. There's also, you know, like that's the same case with like The Boys on Amazon. Apparently the first season was pretty low budget and the second season has a pretty lofty budget by comparison.
Right.
Like they made comments about basically swimming in cash for the second season. So yeah, like you're gonna have stuff like that. So this did well enough that it's gonna, you know, get a pretty hefty increase in budget year over year if it continues to do well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's our discussion of The Witcher. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about it again when season 2 airs. But we're kind of done with that for now. As I said, next week we're going to be talking about Lost, and then we'll be catching up on the episodes of The Magicians that we missed out on because of this Lost discussion. Again, we are doing a Lost rewatch. We're lining it up so that we're watching one episode a day, and so that we finish the series on the 10-year anniversary of when the series ended, the series finale aired. And we're doing, every time we basically finish a season, the next podcast is going to be about that season of Lost. And so if we're talking about like The Magicians this week, we're not going to be talking about it next week because we're talking about Lost. And then the week after that, we'll talk about the episodes of The Magicians that we missed out on talking about because we were talking about Lost, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for this week. All that's left is talk about what's coming up in the week ahead. So tomorrow, Tuesday, February 11th, by the way, we're recording this on Monday, February 10th, but tomorrow on February 11th, For Life comes to ABC, Cherish the Day comes to OWN. On Thursday, February 13th, Love is Blind comes to Netflix, and Narcos Mexico returns to Netflix. On Friday, February 14th, Strike Back returns on Cinemax. The new High Fidelity series comes to Hulu, as well as Utopia Falls The Real Bros of Simi Valley comes to Facebook Watch, and Cable Girls returns on Netflix. On Sunday, February 16th, God Friended Me, NCIS Los Angeles, NCIS New Orleans all come back to CBS. Good Girls comes back to NBC, as does Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. Duncanville debuts on Fox. Last Week Tonight returns on HBO. The Good Lord Bird, a miniseries, comes to Showtime. Outlander returns to Starz, and a new adaptation of War of the Worlds comes to Epix. On Wednesday, February 19th, Year of the Rabbit comes to IFC. On Thursday, February 20th, Sacred Lies, The Singing Bones comes to Facebook Watch. Playing for Keeps to Sundance Now, and Spectros to Netflix. And Friday, February 21st, Hunters comes to Amazon Prime. This looks really good. It looks like The Boys, except instead of superheroes, it's Nazis. So it's about like Nazi hunters. And Al Pacino's the main person in this. So it's in our like getting a huge A-lister involved in a TV series.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if you watch the trailer for it, tonally it feels a lot like The Boys, except instead of like a group hunting down superheroes that are misbehaving, it's a group hunting down like Nazi war criminals that have gone into hiding.
Yeah.
So yeah, it looks really good. Star Wars The Clone Wars comes to Disney Plus. So hey, if you got one of those annual Disney Plus subscriptions, here's your second show.
Yay.
Also, Gentified comes to Netflix, and Porta 7 comes to Netflix. So that's what's coming up in the next couple weeks. Yep, that's it though. So you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. You can subscribe to the podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. So thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Good night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very